Let's say we have a circle with the center O and the 4 points on the circumference A, B, C, and D. So every time when a circle it has 4 points at the circumference, we call this circle a cyclic quadrilateral. So now we are going to prove that the opposite angles of a cyclic quad are supplementary, meaning supplementary, they add up to 180 degrees. So this means the angle of A plus the angle of C, it must be 180, or the angle of B plus the angle of D is 180 degrees. So now if we want to prove that A plus C is 180 degrees, we need to construct the line OB and the line OD. Once we constructed the lines, we're just going to simplify and divide the angle of O into O1 and O2. And then we are going to start to prove. So now to prove this, we will further simplify and let the angle of C to be X. So now when the angle of X is C, we can clearly see that this angle of O2 here is the angle at the center and the angle of C is the angle at the circumference. So we know that the angle at the center, it must be 2 times the angle at the circumference. So we're going to get the angle of O2 by using that the angle at the center is 2 times the angle at the circumference. So the O2, it must be 2 times the angle of C. So now if we do that, we're going to find that the angle of O2 is going to be 2x. So now that we have the angle of O2, we can determine the angle of O1 by using the angles around the point, which is what we call the revolution. So the angle of O1 plus the angle of O2 is going to be equal to 360 degrees. And we already know the angle of O2 is 2x. So now to solve the angle of O1, we're just going to transpose the 2x, and then the angle of O1 is going to be 360 minus 2x. Now that we have the angle of O1, the angle of O1 is actually the angle at the center, and the angle of A is going to be the angle at the circumference. So now the angle at the center, it must be 2 times the angle at the circumference. So the angle of O1, it must be 2 times the angle of A. So now that we have the angle of O1, we're going to substitute the angle of O1, and then we're going to divide both sides by 2 so that the angle of A is going to be 180 minus x. So when we have the angle of A to be 180 minus x, we can now prove that if we add the angle of A plus the angle of C, it is going to give us 180 degrees. So if we do that, the two x's are going to cancel out, and then A plus C is going to be equals to 180 degrees.